Hello, and welcome back to Realms Beyond. So today, I want to do something a little different from what I was doing in the previous two videos, which was to talk about the history, or talk about the world of Archaea. Today, let's talk more about some interesting mechanics that might come into play as you play the game. Now, some of you may have noticed, whilst watching my videos, that there is 4 interesting bars here. Exhaustion, Hunger, Thirst, Sanity. Now, I can tell you right now that all 4 of these things are in Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. And you might be thinking, well, that's not possible. There's no hunger meters and thirst. No, there isn't. You're right. In that sense. But they do all exist, including sanity. And in case you've forgotten, yes, it's in the Unearthed Arcana section of the system reference document. But it is there, and it can be used. So that is very likely the starting point, at least. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about these 4 bars. So let's talk about exhaustion. Now, exhaustion is a standard rule in Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. There are many ways that you can get fatigued in the game. For example, Touch of Fatigue, a spell, or the Barbarian's Rage is another example. When you become fatigued, you can't run and charge, and you get -2 penalty on your strength and dexterity. So when you do that, when you rage, you become fatigued later. So that's why you get penalized. If you do something to fatigue you while you're fatigued, you become exhausted, which is even worse, because it's -6 to your strength, and -6 to your dexterity. So just imagine like 10 strength here and 8 dexterity. That's terrible. So you don't want fatigue and exhaustion to happen to you, unless you don't care about those stats at all, which you might not, but almost everyone invariably does, at least one of the two. So that's how exhaustion works. Now, it's probably a meter in order to measure how tired you get throughout the day. In the pen and paper version, pencil and paper version of 3.5, the DM adjudicates this themselves, and they don't need meters and stuff. But the game needs an objective way of doing this, so that's why there's a meter. So this is just a standard rule, nothing surprising. Hunger, Thirst. Technically, you could put this into the same category, but for verisimilitude, they just make it separate, which is probably useful depending on the climbs that you're going through. Desert, mountain, and so forth. So in the normal rules, you can starve, and as you're starving, you're going to take non-lethal damage. What will likely be the case is that once these meters get really low, your HP is going to start dropping. It's probably how they'll handle it in the game. That's just a speculative guess on my part, though. So, of course, you can, take some stuff and increase your hunger. I'll eat some bread. There we go. So my hunger is now full and I can't eat any more. Okay, so let's go to the bar. See if we can buy a drink. Okay, just some stuff to drink. Wonder if she has any... Oh, beer. Well, I'm gonna have to sell something, so let's just sell that and that. There we go. So let's buy a beer. There we go. Let's have a drink. So let's pay attention to our thirst. I'm thirsty. And also to our sanity, just in case that changes. That didn't seem to change any of that. Well, it looks like that's not working. I'll try water. Maybe beer doesn't actually do anything. Okay, that did increase it. But sanity didn't really change. Okay, so yes, you can quench your thirst with water and other drinks. You might want the Endure Elements spell if you drink too much beer, as we might recall. But there's an interesting dynamic between all of this. You want supplies, you want to carry things, and you probably have to watch your load. So that's where this all comes together. I'm quite tired. I wonder if I can take a rest. Okay, I can't seem to rest at the moment. Well, if you could, then I would rest. Now, they haven't implemented the rules, so I'm not actually seeing any fatigue here. But if they were, then I might be fatigued already at this level. And so that's how they work. Now, sanity. Sanity is a system that was introduced in Unearthed Arcana for 3.5. And it's actually in the open license document. The entire system is there. Sanity is a system by which your character can become, well, insane if it loses too much. It'll go down the more horrible things that happen to you, and you can restore it through healing and other means. So let's talk about it in a bit more depth. I don't know how it will be implemented, but I know the base start that they probably started from and then tweaked and will likely change from, because I'm going to base it solely on the system reference document. And the reason I'm confident about that is because, well, mostly it's because there are several other things in this game that already use the Unearthed Arcana rules. Namely, the weapon focus rules. Weapon focus feats that do weapon category options rather than specific weapons. That's actually from Unearthed Arcana. And also Divine Spontaneous Spellcasting is straight from Unearthed Arcana and how that works. So they are already using some of the rules that we've already seen. They've also done themed summons too with Summon Monster 1. So yes, they are probably looking at the Unearthed Arcana rules because there could be some interesting and more easily implementable variants there that maybe they will use instead of the standard ones. Sanity is one such system. With Sanity, you have a number of points equal to 5 times your wisdom. So, 65 would be this dwarf's sanity score, or number, or points. Every time something happens to your character, maybe you're wielding a very cursed weapon, and you start swinging it, and then you take sanity damage. That's an example, and I think this is a real example. I think the developers actually showed the weapon at some point. I don't recall where, but that's just a hypothetical example anyway. They could change that. Other ways your sanity could go down are casting very horrible spells. I mean, think about a cleric from Cormac, who is supposed to be in the Church of Holy Virtues, casting Summon Monster 1 and a demon comes out. Isn't that insane? Actually, the rule set in Unearthed Arcana does specify that summoning creatures does cause sanity points to get lost. Other spells do similar things. Illusion attacks against you could make you go insane. Monstrosities, and of course DM-controlled events, too. Now, restoring sanity is indeed the case possible. And the skill that is associated with that is the heal skill. If they do this properly, this skill will be even more important. Actually, this skill isn't all that important, to be honest with you. Nobody usually takes it, but now you'll want to take it. This is very useful. It's one of the few ways, besides magic, that you will be able to deal with sanity. Of course, my understanding is that drinking also can help you with sanity. But I don't know the specifics on that. But it makes sense. Drinking beer and other alcoholic beverages helps you with your sanity. So, sanity can be restored. Calm emotions, the spell, or the atonement spell. If they implement it, that could actually be quite useful to restore your sanity, especially if you're like a paladin who's done a dastardly deed by accident, and you need an atonement spell to restore your sanity. That's how they would implement such a spell. They could do that. The heal spell, in addition to restoring a lot of HP, also can restore your sanity, and of course miracle spells, which are really high level, would probably also be able to restore your sanity, and quite a number of other spells too. So sanity is something that you can interact with. Magic items can interact with it. Lots of ways it would work. And of course, if you ever get down to the point where it's completely gone, you probably just either lose control of the character, or the character attacks the rest of your party and you have to kill him or her, or any other kind of event. However they plan to put that in. But it is from the 3.5 SRD. This is not just Sarah's Games putting it in here for nothing. It is established in the SRD as a variant. So I hope that gives you some ideas on what they could be using this for. By the way, exhaustion, hunger, thirst, these are very likely to be affected by your constitution, although in this case, when I created characters with the same scores, these varied, so I don't think that has any bearing on the starting amounts, whatever they are. Wisdom tends to be what sanity is based on, which is probably good because wisdom is not a very good stat unless it's important to your class. People tend to drop it. Rogues even drop it because they have so many other stats that they want to put points in. They tend to actually drop wisdom because they actually do want charisma and they want intelligence and the other physical stats. But wisdom, you can drop that. I mean, it's the only option, really. So this actually makes wisdom very important to your character. It makes clerics extremely important to your party. Or druids. You have a choice on that. Or the heal skill. And also, even in the SRD, they even mention that there are alchemical concoctions that can help you with your sanity. The developers have mentioned that there may not be any healing potions in the game, potentially. Yeah, that's something to think about. But no mention of whether you can restore sanity through various means. I mean, beer does that for you, right? So there might be other options in alchemy that help you restore your sanity. Again, and of course, cooking might have options. Certainly would have options for hunger and thirst, or exhaustion. They're heroes' feast spells. What do they do? How do they impact all of these factors? It's a very interesting element in the game, but its usefulness isn't in this combat demo, but in the normal game and the normal course of play. You need to pay attention to everything, because your mental state of mind and your physical states, in addition to your HP, keep you alive and keep you sane. If you don't have either of the two, well, then you're done for. Now, other things that I'll mention from the Unearthed Arcana are like variant races. They might implement those. Those are really easy to do. As I mentioned in my previous video, they could put variant elemental races for Subagirar, for example, based on my previous comment on that. Or they could do some kind of variant, environmental variant in, Shint. I mean, there's a lot of desert there. They could do desert-based, variants for the races, because those are there as well. So there's just a lot they can pull from in the Unearthed Arcana, and it's worth remembering that they already have pulled some things from there, so what's to stop them from pulling more? Anyway, in case you're wondering, this is not the video I was referring to when I said that there's something even more interesting. This is just something I decided to talk about and take a break from from my scheduled programming, you could call it. This is just a little aside. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully we'll see you next time in the next video.